All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's Safeoclock Health and Safety Interactive Workshop. It's our first for the year and for the month after the Christmas break. So it's my pleasure to have all of us here, and it's also an opportunity to thank God for the gift of life, that we are alive to be able to breathe and meet this new year. So as our culture has been, we'll start with a brief presentation. So after the presentation, then we'll throw the floor open for us to add our contributions. Okay, so that is how we do here. And for those of us that are joining us for the first time, this is Safeoclock Health and Safety Interactive Workshop. We do this every week, Thursday by 7 p.m. So every week we'll have a topic selected for the week to discuss. So that is how we do it. We start with a brief presentation that could be led by any of us. It's not mandatory me. Any of us can lead the presentation. After that, we'll now share our experience, and those who have questions can also ask, and the experienced people among us will also answer. That is how we do here. So this week, we are starting with a topic we called carbon monoxide poisoning. So it's simply talking about carbon monoxide, the harmful effects, and the preventions and actions that is required of us to take to be able to prevent being poisoned by carbon monoxide. So that is what we'll be talking about today. And I believe that some of us who have had practical experience of where this happened and people who have been affected will also share in the course of the discussion time. So what is carbon monoxide? Carbon monoxide is an odorless, it's tasteless, and it's a colorless gas that can cause sudden ill health and even sudden death. That is why some people, they call it silent killer. It's silent because you will not perceive anything, you will not taste anything, you will not even see anything that is affecting you, but suddenly the person will go into unconsciousness and manifesting all manner of symptoms, which eventually, if help does not arrive on time, could lead to death. That is carbon monoxide. It's a very dangerous gas. So how does it come about? It's generated from an incomplete combustion of carbon compounds. That is how it comes about, either from exhaust engines or from funnels or any carbon compound that is being burnt, even coal, even charcoal, even heating equipment that can be used in the rooms. Okay, so those process, when there's, it brings about incomplete combustion of carbon, and in that process, carbon monoxide is produced. Okay, so the victims, most times, they become unconscious even before they realize that they've inhaled the carbon monoxide. So that is why it's very dangerous, because you will not even realize that you've inhaled it before it starts working on you, before it starts affecting you. So it displaces the oxygen from hemoglobin, and this will cause a tissue hypoxia. We'll talk more about that in how it works in human body. Now, most carbon monoxides, they can bind reversibly to hemoglobins in blood cells. And it says that the affinity of carbon monoxide to hemoglobin is about 200 to 250 times greater than that of oxygen. I will explain this in details. Hemoglobin, what the function is to carry oxygen in the blood and supply it into the into all different parts of the body. Okay, but when carbon monoxide is inhaled, what it does is that it will displace oxygen from where it's supposed to be, and it will attach itself to the hemoglobin. Now, this 200 to 250 times affinity rate of carbon monoxide means the rate of strength it has to be attached to hemoglobin is very, very strong compared to oxygen. That is why it can easily displace oxygen, and it gets firmly attached to hemoglobin. And that is where the problem starts. In the next slide, we'll discuss that more details. So where are the sources of carbon monoxide? Where and where can we get it, and where can it start from? It can come from boilers, can come from heaters, from gas, even oil furnace, those working in oil and gas. It can come from kerosene, space heaters. It can come from ovens, gas oven. It can be generated also from vehicles, cars, trucks, okay? It can also be generated from charcoal, from candles and gas, from generators. So any engine that uses any of the crude oils, any of the carbon compounds has possibility of generating carbon monoxide. So that is where it can come from. So even in the workplace or in the house, those using vehicles, you have chances of being exposed to carbon monoxide. That is why we need to have this information and then put on proper preventive and corrective measures. Okay, so let's talk about the pathology of carbon monoxide poisoning. How does it happen? Now, the first one is the hemoglobin mechanism. So the primary mechanism of carbon monoxide toxicity is usually in the extreme affinity that it has with hemoglobin. I've explained this before, that up to 200 to 250 times more affinity compared to oxygen. So it can attach to hemoglobin stronger than oxygen, 200 to 250 times. So that is why immediately it gets inside the body, immediately it's inhaled, and it can easily detach oxygen from hemoglobin, and that is the problem starts from there. Now, the next one is the carboxyl hemoglobin formation. So when it attaches itself to hemoglobin, it forms a compound known as carboxyl hemoglobin. And this compound, what it does is that it will reduce the total oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. The blood itself will no longer be able to carry oxygen to move around or to circulate inside the body. Okay, now the other thing that happens is the left shift. So when the carbon monoxide displaces the oxygen, it will automatically alter the shape of the blood cells. Now, the hemoglobin molecule, because of the binding strength it has, then any remaining oxygen that is still remaining inside the molecules will be shrinked. It will be firmly attached and is no more able to move. So what this means is that the blood will now hold onto the oxygen too tight, and it refuses to release it to the tissues. And invariably, the tissues will start dying as a result of lack of oxygen. So this is part of the pathology of what happens. Now, what again happens is there is a cellular poisoning. So this happens when carbon monoxide binds with the mitochondrial cytochrome. Now, when this happens, is that the electron that is supposed to be transferring this blood, okay, the electron transport chain becomes broken, or it becomes shut down, which means you cannot be able to breathe again. The person will start having respiratory difficulty. Okay, then the next thing that happens is that there is what is known as lipid periodization and delayed sequelae. So what happens is that because of this carbon monoxide present in the blood or in the circulatory system, okay, so it will form a free radical. The free radicals will become very strong and it becomes extremely mobile. And when this is happening, it will automatically lead to the neurons in the brain not having any form of rest, and automatically it can lead to damage in the brain molecules or in the brain cells. And this happens rapidly, and it says that in less than, if treatment doesn't come within 6 hours, then the brain will automatically get damaged and the person could die. So that is how serious carbon monoxide poisoning can be. So this is the symptoms. What are the symptoms of carbon monoxide? When carbon monoxide gets into the body system, what are the symptoms? One of them is headache. The person will feel severe headache. He will feel dizziness. He'll feel very tired, very confused. Also, he'll start feeling nausea and vomiting. He will start feeling like he wants to vomit. Now, he will now start feeling a shortness of breath. He cannot be able to breathe. He can't be able to inhale and exhale. Start having that difficulty in breathing. Now, the next stage is that he have altered mental status. He cannot longer think straight. He might not be able to remember where he kept his things. He can't remember what is happening. So he has altered mental status. Now, the next one is that he will have a cherry red skin color. Part of his skin will start turning red. Then the next stage, he enters a coma. He loses consciousness, and that could lead to death if there's no response on time. Now, how do we prevent carbon monoxide poisoning? To prevent it, the first one is that we have to check regularly the smoke detectors. If we have smoke detectors in the house, or if we have carbon monoxide detectors in the house, we have to check it regularly, ensure that it's properly fixed. Not just in the house, in different workplaces have carbon monoxide detectors. We are going to talk about that, the regulations about use of carbon monoxide detectors. Now, those working in the garage or those who operate equipment, vehicles, cars that has exhaust system, ensure that the garage or there is open proper ventilation before you start the vehicle. This will ensure that the carbon monoxide that will be emitted will not accumulate in that place. Okay, then proper maintenance of the equipment, gas appliances, fireplaces, it should be properly maintained regularly. Then education, communication, exactly what we are doing now. We should educate people, educate our workers, educate people in our workplace about possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning. So we don't just keep the information to ourselves, because it can happen to anybody. Now, if this has happened, how can it be treated? The treatment should be done within 6 hours of poisoning for us to be able to have a best outcome. Then the first thing to do is to remove the person from carbon monoxide exposure. Remove the person from that place and expose him to proper ventilated area. Okay, then 100% oxygen is required to be able to displace carbon monoxide from hemoglobin attachment. Now, when this has happened, if the person has been able to get to the hospital, or maybe paramedics have arrived, then they could be able to use hyperbaric oxygen treatment system. So there are certain factors that can increase carbon monoxide in vehicles. I'm specifically talking about vehicles because most of us are exposed to vehicles and people are not really aware of dangers of carbon monoxide, especially when using vehicles. Okay, so the first one, the factor that can increase carbon monoxide is when there is poor maintenance in the exhaust system. If there is leakage in the vehicle exhaust system, so the pipes, the mufflers, if there is leakage, then from there, carbon monoxide will escape and can be able to go inside the vehicle through the door or through the sides. The doors are not properly sealed. So if there is leakage in the exhaust system, carbon monoxide can easily come inside the vehicle through the minute or smaller space we have in the vehicles. Okay, then another factor is faulty catalytic converters. What is this catalytic converter? This is the component that is used to convert carbon monoxide to carbon dioxide. Okay, so it's embedded in the vehicle system, and most people or some people remove this catalytic converter. Their knowledge is that this catalytic converter, that it consumes fuel, that it makes your vehicle to consume a lot of fuel. Thereby, they remove it. And when this is removed, that means all the carbon monoxide that will be generated from that exhaust system cannot be converted to carbon dioxide. And when it becomes in excess, you know what happened. There is possibility of it getting into your vehicle, or maybe when you parked it, or maybe in the traffic, the exhaust, the carbon monoxide coming out from the exhaust can enter the next vehicle. The next vehicle behind you or beside you can get those carbon monoxide, and they can get poisoning in the process. So people removing catalytic converters or faulty catalytic converters, they are at high risk of carbon monoxide poisoning, or they can poison other people, not just themselves. Now, another factor is manufacturing of sensors. We have oxygen sensors in most of these modern vehicles. So the oxygen sensors, what it does is that it detects the level of oxygen in that vehicle or in that exhaust system. So, but when it's removed or when it's faulty, some people also remove their oxygen sensors, claiming that it consumes a lot of fuel, or some people claim that it will reduce the acceleration rate of their vehicle. Then they will remove the oxygen sensors. This is helping the carbon monoxide to get enriched, and poisoning can happen in that instance. Now, another factor is blocked tailpipes. So when the tailpipe or that exhaust, the exit of those smokes is blocked, maybe due to mud or due to snow or maybe debris or maybe where you parked it and it's blocked. So the carbon monoxide formation will be high, and it can also increase the poisoning. Other factors is operating conditions. So when the engine is in idle state, okay, when you've parked your vehicle and you are not moving, and that location is poorly ventilated, especially people, the glass is properly wound up, even when the AC is on. This is very, very dangerous practice. It is not advisable. Honda on their website have clearly stated it that you are not advised to sleep in the car when the engine is running, even when the air condition is on. This is a high risk alert that Honda has released. The reason is that while the engine is in idle position, ventilation is very poor inside that your vehicle. And that ventilation is, there is not sufficient oxygen to dilute any number of carbon monoxide that will enter inside the vehicle. And that is what will lead to high rate of carbon monoxide poisoning. because the vehicle is in idle position, there is no sufficient ventilation, and any single, no matter the smallest amount of carbon monoxide that enters inside that vehicle, you will inhale it, and those symptoms that we have discussed can start, and it can lead to death. Another factor that can increase the carbon monoxide poisoning is cold start. Okay, so the engine, it requires enough heat for it to start, but in cold situations, or maybe when the catalytic converter have not is faulty, so it's taking time for it to start. So at that time, the carbon monoxide production is high, and it can increase the poisoning. Another thing is vehicle configuration. Okay, so when you are driving with the trunk lid, or maybe rear tailgate open, okay, so this can increase the carbon monoxide poisoning. If your trunk is open, some people, when their trunk gets damaged, they just use rope and hold it a bit. Okay, so what is happening is that when the smoke's coming out from your exhaust, it can enter the trunk, and from the trunk, it will come to the driver and the passenger side. So you are increasing the chances of carbon monoxide poisoning in that instance. Another factor that increases carbon monoxide poisoning is environmental factors. When there is traffic congestion, in the traffic congestion, you see vehicles are congested, the exhaust, this one is facing this side, this one is facing you, this one is facing you, and all those carbon monoxide are being emitted, and the vehicle is steady, there is no proper ventilation, people will start inhaling it, and it can lead to poisoning. Weather condition as well. In cold weather or in cold temperatures, because the engine cannot be able to, the engine, it cannot heat as quickly as possible. So in that process, when the catalytic converter has not properly heated up, carbon monoxide is being formed, and the conversion to CO2 process or carbon dioxide process becomes slower. So because of cold weather conditions, it can also increase the tendency of carbon monoxide poisoning. Ventilation setting is another one. The AC circulation mode. So if you put your AC circulation mode in such that it's taking air from outside, okay, I would have put the picture here. When you try to set your AC, your vehicle AC, you have to set it, there is an arrow that shows you that the air will be circulating inside the vehicle. That is the one you have to select, especially if you are in traffic condition, traffic congestion, where there is a lot of exhaust pipes that could emit carbon monoxide. So if you set your AC to take air, inlet of air from outside, that means any manner of air or any manner of gas outside can come inside your vehicle, and that can accumulate carbon monoxide and lead to poisoning. So the last one we'll talk about is carbon monoxide detectors. Carbon monoxide detectors, they are designed to alert people in that area, maybe in the office or in the home, to alert them of the presence of carbon monoxide. Okay, so in UK and in US, they have regulations that made it mandatory for homeowners and for commercial building owners to install carbon monoxide detectors, because carbon monoxide is odorless, is tasteless, so it's difficult to detect it. Only presence of the detectors can be able to detect it. So in England and Wales, the smoke and carbon monoxide alarm regulation of 2022 has made it mandatory that both private and social landlords must install carbon monoxide alarm in any room, any living accommodation, except in bathrooms, okay, that have a fixed combustion appliance, like wood burning stoves, boilers. So if your accommodation or your house have boilers, wood burning, or heaters, it's mandatory that you must install a carbon monoxide detector in the room. Also in North Ireland, there is a law known as the Private Tenancy Act of 2022. Okay, so it requires that landlords must provide alarm in any room with a fixed combustion appliance. Now, in US, 48 states in the US have a regulation, have already put in place regulation requiring that carbon monoxide alarm be installed in homes. For example, in a state of Illinois, they have the Carbon Monoxide Alarm Detector Act, okay, which requires that within 15 feet of every room used for sleeping in homes that use fossil fuel or have attached garages, that carbon monoxide detector must be installed. Okay, so this is the regulations that has made it mandatory that carbon monoxide detectors should be installed in order to ensure that the presence of carbon monoxide is detected in those such areas where there is high risk of carbon monoxide being present. Okay, so the question now is there such a regulation in your country, or your country is not interested in carbon monoxide? So that is the end of my presentation, and I will open the floor for further discussions. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate the lectures. Thank you very much.
Yes, as usual, let me just lend my voice a little, as really the angle I was about to really dealt with has been dealt with by Mr. Johnson, and he spoke as if he had a degree in maybe biochemistry and all that, the way he was giving the explanation of the binding affinity and all that and all that. So I thought I would come into that aspect because of my probably basic medical knowledge, but I'll confess you've really dealt. In fact, you went too advanced. If I were to speak, I wouldn't have said much, deeper than that, because I would just feel, many of us are not having such background, so that could be quite confusing. But be that as it may, the most important thing is you've made it clear, and as we all know, the way Mr. Johnson have explained to us, we found out that naturally, in nature, our red blood cell has what we call hemoglobin, and this is a chemical, or is a molecule that is basically designed, to transport oxygen, from the spot of the lungs. Each time we breathe in through the lungs, then from the lungs, all the circulatory systems start functioning. So it is at that point, because it gets through into our body through inhalation, when we inhale. So when that happens, a lot of reaction, displacement, the carbon monoxide try to say, I'm the homonile of this red blood cell. So you want to take total control, and like he has said, he has about 200 to 250 binding affinity, so I would just want to focus on our individual experience. We might have experienced these things, maybe probably while growing up, but we might not understand. When I flash back then, when I was in Nigeria, sometime you enter this Molue, they call it Molue, this public transport and all that. You see a lot of carbon monoxide being discharged within the environment. You see, that's why sometimes when people, when they are traveling, some people would they'll feel like they'll have this news, they start throwing up, because at that point they've inhaled a lot of carbon monoxide to the extent that it becomes so toxic and irritating. into their system. And basically, what I get to find out again is that, one of the high risk factor is that those who have underlying medical condition, they are at high risk. High risk, if I can be exposed and withstand some certain concentration, people who have underlying health condition, it could range from diabetes to high blood pressure, because both diabetes and high blood pressure, they are just like husband and wife. So when you have such kind of underlying medical condition, you are at high risk. So on no condition should such people, find themselves in such kind of environment or being exposed to different sources, that can generate this CO2. And most of the silent one, Mr. Johnson have said about, in couple of months, we've experienced people back here in Doha, who happens to be Nigeria, that died, and after the autopsy, it was found out that they died as a result of inhalation of carbon monoxide. I think the last one happened in December here. It was really touching, hurting. And this is a young guy that most of us, we know here in Doha. Really alarming, I must confess, because sometimes we have good car. When I got the news for the second time happening to in Nigeria, I begin to be scared. Really, even with you drive a good car, you are scared, because this could be as a result of mechanical issue of the catalytic converter. Mr. Johnson has said, even if you buy a brand new car, so sometimes there might be faults, within that system. Even I'm a living witness. When I was in Nigeria, I could remember there was a time I had to remove the one I had there when I was using this pencil light, this Toyota Camry then. So see, these are the things we see, we overlook. Okay, so most of the times they are really harmful, for a long period of time. So I just want to really appreciate this topic today and really want to capture on that particular slide where you emphasize on the factors, that increase carbon monoxide in the vehicle, most especially in the vehicle. That is where, because in other aspects, we can control it. We cannot probably say, oh, in our rooms, we are generating carbon monoxide as frequent as it may be, except you are in a place where those things are highly generated. But in the car that you less expect, a lot of things are happening there. A lot of silent killer is in the car. So that is why, by principle, it is advised that when you switch on the engine of your car to run for some few minutes, you have to, wind down your windscreen and all that, for a couple of minutes, so that you can have some kind of cross ventilation before you on your AC and all that. So this is an eye opener, and for every one of us, as a health and safety professional, and also to communicate this, because if we have to look at it from the aspect of the site, construction site, there are a lot of activity. We have generator running there. We have some tools that generate, or some minor equipment that generate this carbon monoxide. So we can lend our advice and encourage people on how to, to control the exposure of this silent killer. I'll put it that way. I will just want to stop here so that other people who have one or two contributions to say, they will just point it out here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen, for
Okay.
always giving your expertise. Go ahead, Engineer Swemba. Who was
Thank
talking?
you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you also to the last speaker. He spoke really very well. Thank you, Mr. Justice, for that elaborate lecture. This thing is not new. It has become a norm in every let me just say every part of the world. Okay, if you look at the statistics, if you look at the world statistics, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you look at the World Health Organization statistics in 2020. 2024, 2025 alone, we have close to 500 deaths, annually resulting from inhalation of carbon monoxide. 500 deaths annually. So when you look at this, 500,000 deaths, annually, coming from the inhalation of carbon dioxide. So when you carbon monoxide, So when you look at this kind of statistics, you, like the last speaker said, you begin to get alarm. You begin to get alarm. Something, a natural resource that is supposed to be a blessing to human being, is if not used properly, can even cause fatality or cause the death of humans, which is now not even a blessing any longer. So statistically, when you look at such a figure, you begin to wonder, why are we even, you see the reason why we at the environment angle of the HSC, you now begin to see the angle why we are advocating for environmental sustainability, why we are advocating for a substitution in power generation, why we are advocating for a greener and a cleaner source of power. Okay, it is because of this kind of statistics we are losing humans to things that we can adequately and efficiently change, advert from. You understand? First of all, before we even go on, how is this carbon monoxide formed? It's very clear. Chemically, the chemistry of carbon dioxide is simple. Incomplete combustion of fossil fuel. Finish. What does it mean? The big English there is that you're burning fossil fuel in the limited absence of what? Of oxygen. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. You see this thing about the fuel in our vehicle passing through the catalytic and whatever components of the vehicle that is in charge of all that. It is just because there is not enough oxygen in that fuel. That is why in most companies, you see one element that can really cause havoc, that can really displace oxygen because it is heavier than oxygen, is sulfur. Sulfur is heavier than oxygen. When sulfur is rich in any hydrocarbon, especially PMS, it will, in reaction, if it undergoes reaction, it will never allow, the oxygen to be much, to partake in that catalytic reaction. And in the end, instead of having water and carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide as the byproduct, you will now have water, carbon monoxide, and sulfuric oxide. And that is why in most companies, that is why in most advanced organizations and companies, they used to supply, before you supply diesel or PMS to those companies, they used to do a laboratory test to check the amount of sulfur that is inside. There is a certain level, there is a certain permissible limit of sulfur that is supposed to be in every liter of either AGO or PMS. If it is above the permissible limit, they don't accept it, because once that fuel gets into the work site, whenever, yes, exactly, whatever they are using it for, whether it's for generating power through using the power plant, generating it, or using it in vehicle, it is a no-no, because apart from even generating this carbon monoxide, it will also generate gases that will also, these gases become greenhouse gases that will also deplete the ozone layer, which causes the climate actions. So can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can anybody hear
Can
me?
hear you. I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So in most companies, they activate this action of testing all hydrocarbons, testing or subjecting it to laboratory testing to get a clean hydrocarbon, either PMS or AGO, which is the two types of hydrocarbon that are being used in most companies in the world. So that is one thing. We need to make sure that we give our equipment or give our plants or vehicles the ability to first get a cleaner fuel to burn before we start checking all the catalytic component and all that. Let us make sure that the fuel we are giving is clean first. That is the first thing we do. That's why the last speaker was talking about you drive a good car, you're driving a good car, but you're still generating the latest Lexus or the latest, or you can be driving the latest Lexus or the latest Mercedes, but if your fuel is bad, you generate carbon monoxide. That's just the truth. So first of all is to ensure that there is the lowest permissible sulfur content in that fuel first, before we start looking at other components that really is involved in the burning. So that is it. So let's look at how, apart from this, we have three ways. Let me be very brief. We have three ways that we do the engineering, we do the controls in in the organization that I worked with, Saipem, while I was in Nigeria. There were three ways we were, from the environment side, there were three ways we were doing. Why I got to know all these things was because I was part of the team doing the carbon footprint. Okay, I got to learn it on myself. The company didn't train me. I got to learn it on myself, and I did more research on this, and I found out all these things I am telling you. So the engineering controls, first of all, you have to look at the design of our offices, okay? Most offices don't are poorly ventilated. These days, people, they don't want to build houses. They tell you they don't want to waste funds. They bring porta cabins and come to site. They mount porta cabins. Of course, it is very efficient. It is very easy to set up. And when the project is over, you just wrap it up and take it. Yes, it's better than building block, but ventilation, most of those porta cabins they use, and it's all over the world, most of them have a problem with ventilation. If you look at a long porta cabin, you'll be having only two windows, one door. I mean, ventilation is a problem. So we have to look at ventilation, and the ventilation is one thing. Then also we look at substitution. See, under engineering control, we look at substitution. Come on, the world is going sustainable wise. Everything now is geared towards environmental sustainability. So we can actually substitute the use of fossil fuel for power generation with things like, with other options like battery, solar system, and the rest, the electric vehicles and the rest, okay? There are actually, these things are not actually expensive, and they are very sustainable. Even they can even help in bringing down most financial costs, okay? Mounting solar panels in all the office, in the uses in the office, it helps. It does not generate any carbon at all, not just carbon monoxide, whether it's carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide or dioxide. It does not generate. These things get clean energy from the sun, convert it to power, and power our electronics or gadgets in the office. So what's the need going for fuel when we are going sustainable? This is 2026, guys. So we don't, if you're in your companies, you have to start telling them the financial and also the health implication, or health and financial implications of still using fossil fuels when they can get cleaner and cheaper and more sustainable source of power. So that's it. Then, of course, if your company doesn't want to buy the idea, or they are saying that, oh, getting these alternatives are going to be capital intensive, or they just don't want to, then we go for the option of isolation. You need to isolate the power generating plant away from the where the office areas are. I am saying office areas now because we can also apply in our homes. But this topic is about carbon monoxide and workplace safety. So that's why I am just being specific with office area. So you need to also, keep it, the international standard for office area is 50 feet away from the workplace, workplace office or what. Keep your generating plant 50 feet away from that. Yeah. In this way, and also in an open aerated, 50 meters, sorry. And in an open aerated space where air can be interplaying oxygen. Let me be very specific. Oxygen can be interplaying with whatever fumes that is coming out of the exhaust duct. Then let's look at administrative. How many times have we as safety people, how many times have we as safety professionals done assurance check, maintenance assurance check on our equipment? It will shock you that if you go to check many equipment, you will discover that some of them have been, the last time they were even maintained or checked was 6 months ago, 4 months ago, 3 months. These things have ripple effects. These ignorances have ripple effect on not just nature, but also on human beings. So maintenance is very, very important. It's one of the administrative control that will help check those our equipment, those our plants, our vehicles, using fossil fuel as their source of power. Maintenance, not just maintenance, regular maintenance, very, very important, okay? So if we do this, you will see that as you're checking after some meters or after some usage, you check these things, you check, when you begin to do it, in most places, they will say that, why are we doing this? The thing about spoil now, it's not yet spoiled. Why? No, you don't have to wait for it to get spoiled. Regular maintenance will solve a lot of issues, both financial, health, and also health, environmental and health-wise. Financially, if that material or if that equipment should break down totally before you have to repair or even get new one. But regular maintenance will cover this. So it's like using one stone to kill like 5, 6 birds. And that is coming from us. It's supposed to come from us, the safety people. This is one way we can help our organizations and then create a presence in the management system. Okay, then let's look at training. We need to also train people. Since we cannot eliminate carbon monoxide, we can only mitigate it. We need to train people to understand these signs, to understand what happens, these symptoms, where they are working, when they see somebody fall down or somebody is beginning to behave funny, having headache, nausea, like the last speaker I was saying about people traveling in monorail buses in Lagos and all that. How do we know this is not this? This is as a result of carbon monoxide. This gas is odorless. This gas is odorless. Okay, you cannot even feel it, but it's there. So we need to train people. Okay, then also, anytime we are going into places that are confined spaces or whatever, or places that are close to where we have these generating powers and all that, if possible, we use a SCBA, okay, a self-contained breathing apartment to work within those areas, or a respiratory protection. Okay, so these things will also help us. Then, again, lastly, we'll look at detection. What do? We put on monitors, like Mr. Johnson said. Put on monitors in areas, in critical areas where we are expecting this kind of, the generation of this kind of, possible generation of this kind of gases. We put on detectors, okay? Put on alarms. Also use of PPE. PPE is always the last form of defense. But one thing I also want to add as an environmental person, you do what we call regular environmental compliance monitoring. Regular environmental compliance monitoring. It is not that very point that they are generating this carbon monoxide, that the generator is going on. It's not only that time that you have this carbon monoxide produced. Carbon monoxide, by the chemistry of it, is heavier. It's heavier. than oxygen. I mean, sorry, it's lighter than oxygen. So oxygen can really displace it, but oxygen cannot reduce it. The volume of carbon dioxide produced will still remain the same, even though it is displaced. What does this mean? It tells you that days, weeks, as we continue to produce, it is clouded up there and dissipates, and it dissipates, reacts and comes down, sometimes as acid gases, reacts with other gases, and then they fall down. Maybe during wet season, they fall as acid gases, where you see people, cars begin to peel, you see your body begin to react. Something like that happened in 2010 in Port Harcourt when we had one case of acid rain. Okay, when we had one case of acid rain, people cars were peeling, the color of people's cars were changing. People that was under that rain that time, their skin was burning, having the burning sensation. So this as a result of the reaction or the chemistry of carbon monoxide and other gases in the air that has been stored over a long time. And of course, lastly, it's our baby, but it's also for our government to boost up those regulatory agencies. Regulatory agencies, I'm sorry to say, in Nigeria is rubbish. They are not checking anything. You go to industrial areas, you see people flaring different kinds of, from their exhaust stack and all that. No regulatory check. They need government policy. They need to improve on regulatory check. If you are producing more than the permissible limit, you will be fined. This is how other advanced countries, it's not magic. It is not magic. In Saudi Arabia, in Doha, that is Qatar, in all the GCC countries, in Europe, they are able to survive because of regulatory presence. This is one thing we are lacking in Nigeria. I must be honest with you. So please, let me not go further. Carbon monoxide is a very dangerous gas. Even in our homes, let me come back to our homes. Keep your generators very far away from where you're staying. Nobody go to farm. Chain and well. Instead of anybody to die for your house because of this thing, they carry the generator, make him go to dance for junction, no problem. But somebody should stay alive. Don't put it very close to your house because the time you sleep, you will not feel anything. It's odorless. You will just inhale it in the morning. Person don't quit me, but God forbid, nothing will happen like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Swengba. I know you're an environmentalist, so this is your field. If we allow you, you will speak from now till tomorrow. To be a doctor in this field is not a joke, so we appreciate the knowledge you are sharing with us. Thank you very much. Mr. Jumbo, your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. Let me sincerely thank all the previous speakers, Mr. Swengba, my former colleague and coordinator in SIPEM, and then let me also sincerely and specially thank Mr. Johnson for choosing this very topic. It's a topic that we can, to a very large extent, virtually everybody can easily relate with, because at some point in time we may have had experiences of being exposed to carbon monoxide and the likes. So a lot has been said already, like my former colleague and coordinator, Mr. Swangba, just mentioned now. We also carry out air monitoring, air quality monitoring, especially around areas where you have power plant installations, to be sure too that you don't have accumulation, and then to be aware of what is happening around those areas. He talked about the sulfur content of PMS and fossil fuels and all of that, but I'm just going to quickly share some LFIs. I'm going to start with the most recent one. This December that just passed, I currently stay in Lagos. I work and live in Lagos, so I needed to travel to the south to go see my family. So unfortunately, this year there was an experience that road users have probably never had in a very long time because of the bad road network we have. and then the congestion of our roads. So we spent almost 2 days on the road, just from Lagos to Port Harcourt, and it wasn't a funny experience. One of the things I noticed in that vehicle, fortunately for me, I was with two of my former colleagues that we worked together with in SIPEM. We noticed that we started experiencing some level of nausea. And then, apart from the physical effect, where we had our legs swollen because we had to sit for almost 2 days, over a day now, for almost 2 days, yeah. So um, we had children vomiting in the vehicle, and even some ladies also were also vomiting, just like Mr. The first speaker after Mr. Johnson mentioned. You know, sometimes you see people vomiting the moment they enter a vehicle. Sometimes it's as a result of this exposure. So I had that, and at some point, it was like it became compulsory that everybody should come down and then take some rest, because the vehicle was not just moving; it was just stuck, and we had a lot of other vehicles whose exhaust pipes were also releasing what's it called? Was releasing a colorless smoke. So, and of course, obviously, you know the poor culture with maintenance, vehicle maintenance and equipment maintenance around Africa here. So, we're exposed to carbon monoxide, even though it didn't result in poisoning. But the experience I had was the moment I got home, all through the Christmas period, I was sick. And some people felt it was a change of environment, but I know, based on experience, that that wasn't as a result of change of experience. It was as a result of the exposure to the carbon monoxide, because at some point I started having a runny nose and a catarrh and all of that. So that's the first LFI. Then, of course, I want to also talk about another LFI. In 2017, I was facilitating a training, HSC training for Nigerian LNG Limited, and we had a lot of contractors in my class that very day. And in the course of our discussion, we are talking about confined space and the hazards of confined space. Somebody shared an LFI. He said he works with a vessel, and they were taking the vessel from somewhere in Bayelsa, I think, to Delta State. But before they got to Delta State, they needed to do some work within the is it the holding cell or something that is in the vessel. And the first two guys that entered, at some point they lost communication. So the third guy entered to go and verify or to check what was wrong with them. Unfortunately for him too, he lost consciousness. It was when the fourth person was about to enter that the captain had to stop him, and then they now activated the emergency response procedure. But unfortunately, before the emergency rescue could get to them, those three guys that entered were actually confirmed dead. And what was the cause of this death? It was as a result of accumulation of carbon monoxide within the storage in that particular vessel. So the most dangerous aspect of carbon monoxide is the fact that it is odorless and it is also colorless. Assuming it has a way of probably maybe you can actually detect it by smell, it would have been easier, like ammonia and other kind of gases. But this one is colorless and it's odorless, so you can't even detect, you can't even tell at what's the level of concentration you may have there, and you can't also tell the level of exposure you would have had. We've also had the LFIs of people who probably, because of the fear of losing their power generating set, like Mr. Swengba mentioned, they now put their power generating set maybe in the kitchen of the house where they live, or maybe in the bedroom. And as this power generating set continues to run, it is generating carbon dioxide. It is also generating carbon monoxide as a result of incomplete combustion. And because the exhaust pipe is not actually directed outside as a result of poor ventilation, it goes back into the building. And then maybe in the morning you hear that, oh, a family of 5 were actually asleep, and unfortunately they didn't wake up. So this actually, like I mentioned, is a topic that virtually everybody can relate with. So it's a clarion call for all of us, And just like Mr. Swangba mentioned and Mr. Johnson, that education is very, very important. At this point, I think we also need to take it a bit further, because sometimes some instances or some occurrences happen, and maybe like in Africa here, as is peculiar to us, we always want to spiritualize things. So we say, oh, maybe a witch came and killed the family in the night and all of that, and people might not even know. Probably they were sleeping with a lantern. There's this lantern that uses diesel also. I don't know if some of us market women use it. It has a wick, and then you light it, and it will be removing soot or just like that. So some people also use it, maybe because they are not able to afford conventional electricity, and then they still use that even in some villages or some inter-land or inter-areas. People still use that. So I think it's a clarion call for us to begin to take this message and let people know that indeed carbon monoxide is a silent killer, and then people will need to stay aware, and then people will also need to protect themselves and, of course, their family members and society at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jumbo. Thank you for those LFIs, and thank you for your experience you shared with us. Any other contribution?
At this point, Mr. Joshua, I thought those people who joined us lately, if they have the contribution, they should also be able to say.
Yes, I'm saying to everybody.
For
anybody that has contribution or question, you can go ahead before we call it a day, please.
I just want to say one short thing. All what we've discussed here, I just keep on thinking that it's just, I don't want to say it as the last speaker just said it. It's just God who has taken care of particularly me from age maybe 1 to around 12 years, because back then in Cameroon, where I grew up, during that period, we had to shift to another area. We're using this kerosene lamp. I don't know if you know this kerosene lamp. Yeah, because that area, the electrical network was not there. So now, because of the discussion, it keeps ringing in my mind that if we were not careful, maybe one day we would have slept and then get up, everybody is gone. Because the situation was, when you put that kerosene lamp and then it burns, you get that
soup. Sure.
And sometimes, I remember now, sometimes inside the house we feel like tiredness and we feel weak, but you don't know that it's because of carbon monoxide. So I think this is something that we really need to champion it and bring the awareness back home in those areas where they still use kerosene and this fossil fuel to for electricity. Yeah, because if not that, if the care is not taken, we will get more cases where people sleep and they don't get up. So thank you very much for the session.
Thank you very much, brother. It's whatever topic we discuss here, please, let's not just kill it here. Any opportunity you have, your toolbox talk, your task briefings, please find few minutes to pass this information around, because you never can tell who you will save. That is one aspect of health and safety that I love so much. You might have saved hundreds of people unknowingly because the incident didn't happen, so there is no report, right? Because you have taken some proactive actions, there is no record showing that an incident happened. So you don't know that you have saved hundreds of people, even with just your communication. So let us not stop. Ensure you communicate, ensure you speak to people about carbon monoxide, say it, even in our homes, in our villages, people living in UK, Canada, those cold areas that they use heaters. So everybody needs to be fully aware of presence of carbon monoxide and ensure that they are taking adequate precautions. So let's not keep the information to ourselves. Let's spread it around, and that is part of our job to keep educating people. So in absence of any other contribution, we'll call it a day. We have tried, and I thank everybody.
Welcoming within the group. So I would just want to take this opportunity to really welcome those of us that are joining this platform for the first time. And just as Mr. Johnson have said, this is just a platform where health and safety professional, environmental, we are everywhere. We come together to share knowledge, our ideas, our experience. You see, this place is not a place where we say, oh, I'm teaching other people. It's about sharing our ideas, learning from other people's experience. And like for this topic, you could see that everybody has to bring out one or two experience that they've passed through. Even some people, they've passed through it. They never knew that this thing, this silent killer, just as Mr. Emmanuel have said, it's only God that has seen us through. So I just want to really encourage every one of us. There's no one that knows it all, and is not the topic are not presented by just one person, but one person might just bring it up. You might bring a presentation slide. Everybody will discuss about it, and we learn from people's experience. So and from people's knowledge and all that. So I will just say welcome to the club, welcome to the house, welcome to the platform. We'll continue to grow professionally as we progress, and we'll make impact to humanity. That's just the underlying essence why we are professionals within the health, safety, and environmental field. So thank you very much for joining this platform. We hope to see you again by next week. Same time, same day, Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before we go, last year, Mr. Swemba promised us to give us a talk about HOP, human and organizational performance. So it's a very hot topic now in the field of health and safety. So I'm pleading that maybe we can create a session for that.
He will scratch it up. You see, he's already doing his head like this. He will bring it out.
Yeah, because it's the buzzword now.
Okay, let's do that. I am on vacation back to Nigeria now. So okay, let's do it next week Thursday. Let me create time for next week Thursday. Inshallah, I will touch just on that. A lot of you already know that topic, so it's just to highlight one or two things. So I'll try my best.
Okay, yeah. that would be great. That would be great.
Emmanuel, I'm on vacation. No, can't give me work.
This one is not a paid work, so you can do it. All right. So next week Thursday we already have a topic, so we'll be excited to hear from Mr. Swemba.